changes to Everton's boardroom. Everton released a club statement today, put it on Twitter, club statement release, and everyone's like, what is it? What's it going to be? And it is changes to their boardroom. Long-serving chairman Bill Kenwright will remain at Everton after being convinced, we're told, by owner Farhad Moshiri to help the club through a period of transition. Obviously, Everton move into a new stadium. They will get into that new stadium, or hope will get into the stadium at the start of next season. Moshiri will join the board as well, alongside John Spellman, described by the club as an experienced chartered accountant, successful businessman, and I guess more important to Everton fans, an Evertonian. Let's welcome in James Pendleton from the Toffee Blues podcast. Straight to the elephant in the room. Bill Kenwright will remain on as chairman. Look, we all saw the banners, and I've just had a look on Twitter, which isn't the greatest place to gauge the feeling of fans for a club, but they're not happy. People aren't happy. Are you happy?
No, not at all. I think on this rare occasion, Twitter's probably a decent place to be in terms of genuine Evertonian opinion. It's not been a particularly good day, but I think if you spoke to most fans, the day they thought was going to come for the last sort of 10, 11 days or so, to be honest with you.
There are other people that unfortunately have been given the axe. I say unfortunately. Unfortunate for them, maybe not for Everton fans. The likes of Denise Barrett, Baxendale's gone. Grant Ingles has gone as well. Graham Sharp, all have gone. Is that some sort of positivity? Because again, when people were taking a look at the board, everyone wanted everyone out, including those lot.
I mean, I think when the statement came out, to be fair, and you're reading it and you're thinking this is good, obviously the first few have moved on. It seems like that decision was made a little while ago, but then you get towards the bottom of it and you read there's going to be a 48-hour wait on Bill Kenwright. I think he was the one people wanted out the very most, but I think it was very much a group thing. I think for most fans, they wanted the whole fit to go. It wasn't that we wanted to keep Sharp on, it wasn't we wanted to keep Barrett Baxendale on or Ingles or anything like that. I think it was most fans wanted them all to go, and if they weren't all to go, at the very least, you'd definitely want Bill Kenwright to be moving on. He was the one. I'd say the majority of fans would have wanted to go first, but as soon as we saw 48 hours, as soon as that was surpassed, I think we were all very worried about what was going to happen next, and I think obviously it's happened in pretty much the exact way many fans thought it was going to happen, and it's really unfortunate. Yeah,
Farhad Moshiri speaks about obviously a period of transition, and that's the reason why. Aside from that, and look, we understand the transition, moving to a new stadium, that's not going to be easy, but surely there's people with experience within the club that can help them do that. Why do you think he would keep Bill Kenwright on as chairman?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. I think it's a case that obviously he is a very experienced chairman. He's been at Everton for obviously over 2 decades now. He's been on the board since the late 80s. He's been around for a very long time, but at the end of the day, I think he's 77 now. Some of the stuff he's been coming out with over the last few months has been really damaging for the fan base, really poor luck for the club. I think the level of delusion has reached a very, very high level at Everton now, and I honestly couldn't give you any valid reason. I say obviously he's experienced, but there's lots of experienced chairmen out there who've not just experienced being in the seat, but they've experienced a tangible level of success and development. I think over the last 5-6 years under his chairmanship, we've been a sinking stone, and we will continue to sink while he's still at the club. I'm very certain of that, and I'd say most fans are as well.
There were some, and only a few, but you know what the media's like, they like to make it seem like it was a lot more than it was, but there were some ugly scenes outside some home games last season. Everton fans clearly not happy. Do you think it may be a time now just to get behind the club, everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, because I guess it affects the players on the pitch to an extent, and Everton, the last couple of seasons have finished really low down the league, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a case that Everton fans are going to be singing from the same hymn sheet, absolutely. And I think the genuine issue is, I'm not just saying this as a match-going fan, but Moshiri and Kenwright, that we feel they're on a different hymn sheet, and that's where the problem lies. I think if they were on the straight and narrow and doing the correct job, and Evertonians were not behind them or the team, it'd be slightly different. But I honestly feel like those two are living on a different planet at the minute to what Evertonians are seeing, and we want to do nothing more but back the fans. But over the last 2 seasons, we've flown far, far, far too close to the sun for this club. We did that as well, obviously, in the late 90s when Kenwright was not as chairman, but he was obviously at the club. I think that's 3 different last day relegation scraps, which for a club like Everton, what they once stood for, that's nowhere near good enough. So it is definitely a case that Everton wants to be behind the team, absolutely. We take 15th, 14th place next season any day of the week. But well, exactly, yeah. So that's what we'd like to happen. But there's a long time for the season to kick off yet, so I think there's time for this to roll a little bit further, and obviously we'll see what happens. But I see as we get close to the kick-off, we want things to be sorted, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about sort of the ideas and hopes for next season. As you say, 17th last season, 16th the season before. I remember even in 2021 season, 10th, and that was bad. I remember that wasn't good enough. And the fact you're saying you take 15th or 14th right now suggests how bad the club is doing. Would you make of what's going on at the club in terms of signings? Nothing being reported, a couple of players leaving, but nothing in terms of new income to help, give you that fighting chance for next season.
Yeah, nothing even remotely close. I think at this stage of the season, you start to see those tangible links, those links that are going to roll from now till they happen or till the end of the summer, whatever. But there's absolutely nothing. Tom Davis left yesterday. He was a player that certainly isn't good enough to play for Everton, in my humble opinion. I think he'll do very well elsewhere in football, but he's another leader or another character at the very, very least who's gone. Connor Cody, Yerry Mina, Asmir Begovic. There's countless players who've left the club over the last only 3 or 4 weeks who are going to put massive dent in that changing room. And I honest to God pray that Sean Dyche has got a plan, because I think if the season were to start tomorrow, we'd be rock bottom very, very quickly. I don't think we'd get out of that mess. So, no, nothing on signings. Unfortunately, that's anything even remotely close or strongly linked. But players leaving, it feels like, all the time now. Yeah. So it's a real shame where we're at, to be fair, and I think it's a real mess. But I think Evertonians are getting very used to this sort of confusion and misalignment all over the place. Especially with, again, new stadium on the horizon, beautiful stadium as well. I've seen it. It's wonderful, and that's not a championship football stadium. Everton are not a championship football club, but it looks like almost like it's operating as one right now. Sean Dyche, obviously not a lot to go on last season, came in, did the best he could, I think, with his hands tied behind his back. What do you make of him as manager of the club so far? I think he got some very unfair stick, personally, myself, last season. I think there were some games that we didn't win, which were fair enough. There were some that I think any manager in the world would have struggled to get a result out of. There were a couple of poor ones. I think he made a couple of poor decisions. But honestly, I think he did very, very well. And I would say, of all the other managers who were out there, he was probably the only one who I think was readily available who would have kept Everton up. And yeah, it was by the skin of our teeth, but I think some of the results we got under him was super impressive. Away at Brighton was perhaps a standout result in the Premier League last season. At home to Arsenal when they were flying at the top of the league was also very, very good. I think Sean Dyche did a sort of 8 or 9 out of 10 job last season, and I think as the closer we get towards this coming campaign, he's the only ray of light we've got, really. The only a couple of players that we're particularly big fans of, I'd say generally. Obviously there's players that we like, but I think there's only a couple we'd be disappointed to lose. I think at the minute, for a slightly strange situation at Everton, given the last couple of managers, he's kind of the one that I think I'm pinning my hopes on for this season, absolutely. How does this all change, James? Again, I remember an Everton team where you fighting for European positions, fighting for Champions League positions under David Moyes. Farhad Moshiri will counter the argument and say, look, I've spent money at the club. I mean, everyone knows that Everton have spent a lot of money on the wrong players, but they've spent a lot of money. How does it change? Is it new ownership coming in, a better sporting director or a sporting director? Or what is the solution? Well, I honestly think that if a new chairman had came in, that would have been a really good start, and it would have just galvanised the entire fan base, and I think everyone would have felt very strongly going into this season. I think for Everton to seriously move forward and get back to what you're saying there of the mid-noughties, late noughties, where we were challenging for Europe, we were getting into the UEFA Cup, Europa League, obviously very, very briefly in the Champions League as well. I think we've got the right managers to do that. I think there's a few players who could stick around for that, but yeah, new ownership, new investment. He has invested a lot of money, and I've never once doubted his the fact that he's came in, he's put his hand in his pockets, fair play to him for that. But he brought in a chief scout, a director of football from Leicester, who didn't seem to know what he was doing. He seems to have interfered from the very beginning to the very end of practically every process. I think if Tony Bellew was talking just before about Keir Trabzon having huge ties to the club, he's gone about 99% of the decisions the wrong way. And while ambitious, while he has put his money where his mouth is, it's actually left us in a far, far worse position. So I think for us to get seriously back to where we want to be, Farmer has to move on. The stadium timing is really unfortunate, because I'd be very shocked if he were to leave before Bramley Moore was done. But if we can just keep our heads above water before that, get into the new stadium, and maybe it's the ground that's going to be the real kick-starting point for us. I certainly hope so, if it's not before then.
James, appreciate you coming on, my man. Thank you very much. James Pendleton there from the Toffee Blues podcast. Again, Everton have announced a shake-up boardroom level, but not what Everton fans want to hear. Bill Kenwright will remain as Everton chairman. Farhad Moshiri will also be on the board alongside the likes of John Spellman as well, Colin Chong. They have got rid of some people. Denise Baxendale's gone, Grant Ingles has gone, Graham Sharp has gone, but not good enough for Everton fans.